Yeah, I'm comfortable. One next. Okay. The man is all just talking. Did you have any highlights on what we did?
I think many matches with the obviously agricultural show got it Buddha in the Yuto Namamstaura.
Yes.
I couldn't get good picture. I suppose it's not a upper Saturday side.
It's just the general interest. And that three other people must put.
These are the results.
Are you sure that we don't want to be ahead of the others? Everybody has managed to come through security.
But what is spread out of Marco show, Marco show, program HIV.
So there's nobody else who is still downstairs having challenges.
Could everyone has come up?
Oh, okay. Yes, we can start.
Just a moment.
This was the second quality bureau after car cleaning.
Yeah, it's the second after.
So we didn't have a briefing even on the previous one.
Yes,
so we'll just make it composite.
They'll be expecting a few comments on that definitely. And the putting up senators at a point one.
Senators, yes.
Just to brush through it. To get it up because I'm sure they want to panel
As it's much more persons than
especially since it was a nice one,
yes.
but the big question.
Yeah, there's to revisit women's league much more.
Yes.
That was nice.
If I'm not saying that.
No, and
But you see what's on next week.
Nandri Maputo, I couldn't make it. Made its conference in Mozambique also.
Even if I'm not in the next week.
Ah, what did it? Mozambique. No,
I think Wednesday. To our press conference, it will be addressed by the Secretary for Information and Publicity, Comrade Christopher Mchangwa. Over to you, sir.
Thank you again, the Fourth Estate. As usual, we value your patronage of what goes on in Zanu PF. We are the ruling part of Zimbabwe. We are the part of the permanent Zimbabwe revolution. The people of Zimbabwe always repose their confidence and trust in what Zanu PF does. And our leadership accordingly takes that assignment seriously. And to bridge that gap is your role as people who speak on authority, who write on record. In this era of artificial intelligence, everybody is a publisher. Anybody with a phone and has a keyboard is a publisher. So, there's a deluge of information, including a lot of verbiage. So for trust and confidence, we tend to rely on you as people of right on record. So when you come to our press conferences, we take you seriously. Thank you so much. We had our Politburo meeting yesterday, and we also had a previous Politburo meeting. These two Politburo meetings are subsequent to the passage of the CAB 3 bill, which is now CAB Act, which is now CA, Constitutional Amendment Act of Zimbabwe. And it is of note that the genie is out of the bottle. When I say the genie is out of the bottle, I say the story of Zimbabwe's success is now on the global stage. People were anxious whether we could handle this issue of a smooth handover within Zanu PF of the political systems. There was anxiety, as 2028 was approaching, that will Zimbabweans hold their act together so that the country remains focused and steadfast. And the passage of the bill addressed that issue in a definitive manner. We are now very confident as a country about certainty of leadership. We are also confident of the stability of the political system, and we are very assured of the sustenance of the economic miracle which our president and his Second Republic has delivered. This was very, very important for a signal to the world that Zimbabwe can handle its affairs in such a manner that there is smoothness in any political systems which are sure of continuity and certainty. CAB 3, which became a CAB Act, and which became Constitutional Amendment Act, addressed that issue definitively. So we are very happy with that. The party gauged the mood of the electorate, of the people of Zimbabwe, very well. It carried out its consultations exhaustively towards this bill. Parliament debated it extensively and widely, and intensely, this debate. And when it came to vote, the passage was overwhelming in both houses. And the president had an obligation which he duly discharged to sign the Constitutional Amendment Act, and that was done, and there was jubilation by the party when this was done, but there was also an assurance of certainty by the population of Zimbabwe. It's a risk-averse population which went through a war, the population of Zimbabwe. So their gauging of risk is one of the most uncanny on the African continent. So the handling of this whole matter has addressed the thing which was like the sword of Damocles hanging over Zimbabwe. Will Zanu PF handle its affairs in such a way that there will be no ructions which upset the apple cart of economic recovery which is going on? So those who love Zimbabwe, they are happy with the outcome. The detractors, they no, they have nothing to shout about. You know, I think probably for detractors who always thought Zimbabwe would somehow be thrown off skelter, I say this is the end of Zimbabwean politics for the detractors. And with the end of Zimbabwean politics for the detractors, it is also the beginning of the Zimbabwean economic resurgence on a sustained scale by the country. And our president, who is at his best mettle when he's dealing with economic issues, now he has got a whole pathway, a whole highway cleared for him to deliver prosperity to the people of Zimbabwe on a scale which is epic. Which is epic. This is a country which has done its part in the past, contributing to African history. The great Zimbabwe civilization is awesome. Sustained from the 8th century, starting at Mapungubu all the way to Great Zimbabwe, then Kami, Danamo, Manaretale, and many others, probably 200 to 300, of sustained glory from the time of the Mwanamtapas, with the trade in the Indian Ocean going all over the shore. This is the story of Zimbabwe. This is the story of Zimbabwe which engineered a military resurgence to reverse the defeat of the 1884 Berlin Conference colonial era, military defeat in the 1890s. And by 1979, we had reversed the tables and delivered military victory in modern warfare on a scale which Africa can only be awed, can only hold in awe, on a scale which makes the African diaspora be proud. And that's what the story of Zimbabwe is. We went through challenges of consolidation of independence from a fractured society in 1890, and the statecraft which was exhibited at that time is remarkable. It has become the poster child of conflict resolution by the United Nations, how you unite 3 4 warring armies into one army. And in this military resurgence, in this post-independent political consolidation, and in this post-independent governance stability, there's one constant. It is the constant of Comrade Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. He is the one weaving through the cabinet and political systems of the First Republic, advising our first president, as a key advisor of our first president, to make sure that the ship of Zimbabwe sailing coasts to the shore without wreckage, without turbulence. That's what the president has done. And in 2017, the people of Zimbabwe gave him a chance to be at the top. And again, he skillfully handled a very difficult situation as the First Republic hit turbulence. There was anxiety. There was even fear that things may go wrong, but somehow Zimbabwe coasted through, and we are where we are today with an economic resurgence which is confounding the world, to put it mildly. So in our meeting yesterday in the Politburo, there was unanimous expression of gratitude, of gladness, about the president. That the Politburo said, we repose our trust and confidence in you and what you have been doing. And this was to a man, the whole Politburo. I am saying this because it is important for people to understand that, yes, there may be ambition, and rightfully so, in politics. That's why everybody is a politician. Ambition is right. Yeah, and but there also is a time when ambition has to cave in to the realities of what the people want. If it is a democratic society, which is Zimbabwe, it's a democratic society, where the first ever liberation movement to accept elections as the baptism to power in 1980. Even when we are on the verge of a military victory, we could even have said bullet to office. That's what we would have done in 1980, but we decided it's in 1979. But at the Lancaster House, we said we are a ballot to office party, and we subjected our liberation struggle to the ultimate test of the vote, and we came out on top in the elections in 1980. So the democratic ethos of ZANU-PF are impeccable, and it is a great comfort that even when there are pretensions of ambitions in the party, which are rightfully the expectation of every politician, when finally a decision has been made, everybody folds in and supports the president. This is what we found in the Politburo yesterday. Every one of the Politburo members, all of them were behind the leadership of the president. Most important, there was a keenness by everybody to say, if we have got ideas about economic development as we proceed forward, which we may have had, and if they may look or sound better, we are going to be advising those ideas to the president, because he's now the man who has been given unfettered stewardship of the economic resurgence of Zimbabwe. So we are very happy that there is unity in the party, which is reflective of the unity in the country, and which is also now creating reverberation in the boardrooms of important economic players of the global stage. That's where Zimbabwe is. Just yesterday came the report from Citigroup, the second largest bank in the whole world. Yeah, there are four major banks: Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase. I forgot the other one now, I'm out of my head, but Citigroup is among the top 5. They are all American. Remember, if you are big, you have to be in America. It's the superpower of the world. So this is Citigroup, the biggest investment bank in the world by the number of assets it manages, the second largest. And their assessment, their analysts said Zimbabwe, which was epitomized by economic malfeasance, which everybody knows. We lost a currency in 2008. A country without a currency, it's a country is mtupo. The mtupo wenyika unoita unite everybody. Kufurana kushungona na mhofu na its currency. We didn't have, now we have the currency back. So Citigroup says this current country, which was known for inflation on a scale unprecedented in history, is now known for fiscal probity on a mouth-watering capacity. And our central banker was touting the death of inflation in Zimbabwe. You know, we are now in single digit. This is what Zimbabwe has done through the Second Republic of President Emerson Mnangagwa. So he's almost a magician a turnaround magician of economics, if I can put it. He has made Zimbabwe the comeback kid of global business circles, and word has gone round. That's where Citigroup can say that it's also good that erstwhile doubters and those who had misgivings about Zimbabwe, including the two foremost post-imperial powers, France and Britain, they have decided to become part of a package to address Zimbabwe's debt overhang. Remember, we are doing well on the current account. It's black. That's why everybody has got US dollars in his pocket, and you don't fear that tomorrow your currency will disappear. But we have this historical debt, some of it inherited from the colonial era, most of it, and a lot of it owed to Western countries. So if we get France and Britain to join in the debt resolution of Zimbabwe, it's a good sign, because these are the two countries which were prominent in the post-colonial reconciliation which is necessary between Europe and Africa, France and Britain. So we welcome the fact that they are now part of the debt resolution. And the president also had a very, very busy schedule on the sub-regional stage. We had the handover of chairmanship of SADC to South Africa, and accolades were overflowing in Durban as to how Zimbabwe had shepherded SADC in such a way that the organization can now aspire to closer unity. After SADC in Durban, he went back to South Africa for what will probably go down as a historic binational commission between Zimbabwe and South Africa. I was there on the margins of business, but I also was able to follow what was going on among the ministerial delegations and later the heads of state, the two heads of state. You can't believe the camaraderie which exists between Zimbabwe and South Africa. It was palpable. You could touch it among the leadership. You could touch it among the government ministers, among the officials. You could touch it with the business community. There was a business council meeting which I attended, and I was one of the keynote speakers from the floor, with nearly 400 South African and Zimbabwean business people, with 2/3 of them coming from South Africa. And the whole discussion was animated as the South African business community began to understand the scale of the economic turnaround which President Mnangagwa has masterminded. Wade is speculating to the South African business community that you can't miss the boat of Zimbabwe's economic resurgence. It's going to places where Africa has never been. And this was evident in that business council, which was addressed by both presidents, with President Cyril expressing particular adulation about what Zimbabwe has done. He was the advertiser, the chief advertiser of brand Zimbabwe himself, because he was acknowledging what his elder colleague from Zimbabwe has done to restore the economic and financial image of a country which everybody had thought was a pariah. We had become a case study of what is called state failure. This country is going to collapse. We had the resolutions being passed at the UN that we can become to be rescued by the United Nations as a failed state. Now all that has been banished. It has been brushed away, and the image of the country has been banished. And President Cyril went to great length. Our president also took to the floor, and he emphasized the importance of regional economic integration and focusing, of course, on the strength which can be derived from our ascendant role on the global stage in the critical minerals which are going to determine the shift from fossil fuel mobility petrol and diesel to new energy electric vehicles of batteries. And Southern Africa holds the rooster in the critical minerals which are important for this next stage. DRC, 70% of the cobalt. This is the cobalt in this battery. It is also the same cobalt now in the electric vehicles. This is battery which is larger than this one. It is also the same cobalt in the new storage of electricity. There will be big storages where power stations like Abora Basa and Kariba generate power at night because the river doesn't stop when demand may be slow. And that power is when factories are closed. Now there's new storage using these batteries to make sure that it is available during the day at peak demand. So it hedges out the truncations in the distribution of electricity from the generators. So these minerals, cobalt is one of them. DRC dominates 70% on the global stage. Then lithium, the story of Zimbabwe's lithium is now a matter of legend. We have top billionaires in Zimbabwe processing lithium on a level which no global south country has ever done, adding value to it. Goromonzi, in Shavani, very soon in Berengwa, Sandawana, Katukama TV. All these are major lithium producing centers. What if Zimbabwe makes a statement on lithium? It shakes the market. We shake the global market. This is the beauty about what the president has done, yes, to make Zimbabwe be recognized on something good. So the president spoke at length about this and how we as a region can come together. South Africa is major in manganese, 85%. Mozambique is major in graphite. The biggest graphite mine in the world is in Mozambique. These are all the minerals which are. Then there are the rare earth minerals which are important. These are minerals which will determine, then the platinum group metals. These are the minerals which will determine the next era of non-fossil energy, which is coming to save the world from the smog and pollution, which is threatening climate change. This is what the president talked about. So Southern Africa is in a catchbed position for all these minerals. And this is the basis of bringing our people together so that we can deliver prosperity and the promise of the National Liberation Movement, which delivered freedom against colonialism, apartheid, and racism in the region. So these bonds, these historical bonds, were very much at play at the summit in South Africa, and there's a new appreciation by our neighbors in South Africa that Zimbabwe is going anywhere, and there's nothing as good as being voted in favor by your neighbor, more so a neighbor which is the #1 continental economy of Africa, which is South Africa. Those kudos are very good. It means the risk perception of Zimbabwe is now being banished. We are now removing all the blemishes of risk perception, one after another. And what does it mean? It means capital will come to Zimbabwe in dollops, which may have never been imagined into Zimbabwe. And when you bring capital, you change people's lives. When you change people's lives, you give hope to the youth about the future. You create jobs. We are going to get to a situation where Zimbabwean goods and services will be produced by a very competent and educated labor force, which is very disciplined and will be up to scratch in terms of global quality, and they will find a ready market on the global stage. This is where the president is going. World-class goods made in Zimbabwe for the global market. So these are the things which our party leader has been seized with. And now, with CAP 3 out of the way, with the Act now in place, he can be more. He will be more focused. There are no more cobwebs. Yeah, and those with ambition, they can tuck it away for the time being and support the current leader, and that is already what is happening within the party. And it is reverberating on the regional stage that the leadership of Zimbabwe is going to do well for the sub-region. So this is by and large what I wanted you to be abreast of, that we are in the era of the end of politics and the beginning of economics. Yes. This is where we are. There was the issue which people wanted to foist on SADC, which is the issue of Afrophobic xenophobia in South Africa. As a build-up to SADC and as a build-up of the Binational Commission, there was even some imagination, illusions about 31 July being a date where something cataclysmic was going to happen. Unfortunately, those illusions turned into delusions. 31 July came to pass. There was absolute peace in the land, in Zimbabwe. And the president had also deftly done something on the diplomatic stage. They were trying to set up Zimbabwe and South Africa as the two key economic players of the region against each other by unleashing this contrived weaponization of labor people in South Africa, poor people. So they were being set up against each other, and they wanted to create a backdrop where there will be acrimony between Pretoria, Tshwane, and Harare. Our president is an old hand in African politics. He has been around since the 1960s. He has seen through it all. And Zimbabwe steadfastly refused to be drawn into a slandering match against South Africa. We had to lay a steady and calming hand on our other African brothers further to the north, in important countries like Ghana, like Nigeria, to say no. The issue which is being foisted on Africa is for Africans to shout at each other, so that that attribute of divide and rule, continues to be the narrative. And in the end, Zimbabwe's diplomacy prevailed. In the Binational Commission, there was nothing about xenophobia between Zimbabwe and South Africa. At SADC in Durban, there was nothing about xenophobia. If there were issues, they were being dealt with in the right channels, in subtle ways, with the deft diplomacy of the president expressing himself even through cultural and traditional diplomacy. You will recall with King Damase from South Africa's Amapondo, the paramount chief, the paramount king of South African traditional institutions. We had Misuzulu, King Misuzulu of the Zulu nation. He was here. They came to see the president of the Republic of Zimbabwe to remove the branding of that xenophobia from attribution to their tribes. They said, we represent the people in Eastern Cape who are being attributed with this Afrophobic xenophobia. We, as the kings of that place, we have nothing to do with it. And when they did that, it took the steam out of those who wanted to promote this as a divide and rule ruse against the Africans. They took the stink out of the xenophobia propaganda, and it was diffused. This is how President Mnangagwa uses his institutional memory of African politics from the time when he was young, when the OAU was at its formation and he was scouring, he was moving Africa and all over Africa to be trained to become one of the pioneer freedom fighters of Southern Africa. He has been around for a long time. He has seen it through. The institutional memory is profound. And he has always been ready to proffer his wisdom to Mother Africa, our continent, so that guns can die in Rwanda and between Rwanda and the DRC and other places, so that minorities in Africa can identify with the whole societies, because we suffered the discrimination of the majority. We know the pain of exclusion as a majority. Now that we've gained majority rule, we are conscious that we should never burden minorities with the pain of exclusion also. That's why in Zimbabwe we are so inclusive, regardless of whether you came from Malawi or Mozambique or Zambia. We become inclusive. This is the template of our president, and he's pushing it on the African stage. Hopefully we may have a summit addressing these minority issues, so that the issue of xenophobia can also be included. But along, we want even those who may have been privileged before to feel that they are part of a new Africa. We want the Afrikaners to feel that they are part of Africa. It's important. They play an important stage on the global, they play an important part on the global stage because of the privilege which they enjoyed in the past. They have influence in Western capitals because of their origin as Europeans from the colonial era. They have produced prominent players like Elon Musk, Kuzbeka, who grace the global economic stage, technology, space. These are important players. We want them to feel that they are part of Africa, and we want them to become avatars of bringing more capital to Africa, so that they can repay their debt to the continent which made them who they are. And when they do that, they make Africa's access to capital cheaper and more plentiful. Because what can only transform Africa is abundance of capital injection. So we have the resources, we have the young population, we have the market demand. So we need every African. That includes the Jewish population, especially in Zimbabwe and South Africa. We want them to be feel part of Africa, regardless, of course, of the country of which they identify with Israel and some of its wayward policies. But them as societies within our body and economic politics, we want them to be part. We want these issues about labor migration to South Africa to be handled in a way where there's competitive advantage in different countries, so that labor movement is determined more by market, so that there's no adjusting, there's no quarreling for job opportunities, where capital has concentrated itself without abandoning the other areas. We want a more even special development in SADC, so that wherever you are, if there's economic advantage, there's also development, so that people move. Labor mobility does not happen ahead of capital injection, which is what has happened in South Africa. Labor is mobility. People have gone there for jobs when capital is not responding at the same pace. We need to reverse that. Capital must go first, then labor must follow. If we do that, we create a very smooth, productive economic activity environment for ourselves. So these are the things which our president stands for. And I'm saying them today because I told you, the passing of the act ended the era of politics. The passing of the act ushered in era of economics. That's what we are. We are going to be firmly focused on economic development, because it is the economic development which is the salvation of Zimbabwe, which is also the redemption of Africa. Africa lost out in the allocation of capital because of the imperial and colonial era and minority rule. So we are lagging behind other continents. It is important we catch up. Of course, we also discussed at length the steel industry, of which the president again has been magical. Bringing in modern African steel industry on the center of a landlocked country. This is something which will go down in the annals of history, and the fact that South Africa now says we must integrate our two industries, the advanced fabrication and Zimbabwe as a raw material source for good quality steel. The president is very much aware of the importance of this sector, because steel is, for nation building, what food is to the body of a human being. So the president has addressed one of the most enabling aspect of modern national development, which is the creation of a steel industry. For historical fact, there is a continent